Hi everybody. So here comes the finale of this process. The groove has been cut by the perforator and me. I've prepared the strips of purfling that go in here, and what I've done is just dip these strips in water. They come straight. And I run them through my thickness sander to get them smooth on the top side and just the right thickness that I want. So, which would be just a couple thousandths thicker than the depth of cut of the slot. I push the purfling into this groove and hold it in with clamps maybe overnight till it dries. I use this tool to push the purfling into this so I can kind of manipulate it as I'm putting it in. And this is nothing other than a smallish, old-fashioned ball-peen hammer that belonged to my grandfather, Kiefer. And what I did was just sand and polish the ends. So this end actually we just used to texture the the pickup covers, nickel pickup covers. So this tool really is a nice thing to have. You don't drive steel nails with it anymore, but it is nice to have a shiny thing with a good handle on it for pushing. And that's what we're going to use it for today. What I've done is I've cut the ends of this guy. So this boy comes in here, and then just like that. And over here you can see there's a scarf joint I've cut, an angled joint. Still a butt joint, but it's at an angle. And here's the mating piece for the base side. And this will go in there and, hopefully look pretty good when we're all done. Okay. And then the next thing to do, or really the last thing, before this gets glued in, is to cut the length of it, and this is kind of what I wanted to talk about a little bit. Because what happens is this little strip of fiber, of course, is hygroscopic, meaning it'll respond to water. So when you're scrambling to get all this stuff in here with hide glue, and there are other gluing options you could use, but this is what I choose to do. Anyway, while you're struggling to get it in here, it would be a mistake, ask me how I know, to think that you knew exactly how long it was supposed to be. Because if you glue this part in first on the treble side, and then you start gluing this thing in, you come around here, and no matter how carefully you've cut, the water will have expanded this fiber material a little bit, and you'll come around here and you'll have a fit disaster. And so what we do to fix that is we have a piece of masking tape on here that shows exactly where this other part is. And we come in here with a razor blade or knife. The razor blade is great because it's thin and you can see around it. And we're just going to make a mark here that's about, I don't know, 15 thousandths too long, say. Okay, and then we'll cut that, fit it, make sure we like it, and then when we go ahead and glue it in, when we get around to here, we'll put the end in and push this way, and then somehow it all sort of it all sort of works out and stretches and crushes and everything, and saves us the embarrassment of having it not fit over here. Now, I just noticed that right here and here are a couple of little flanges or tabs or burrs or whatever you want to call them on the purfling that are unwanted that I missed. So I'm going to sand them now. This is the part that I already did off camera, so these are just a couple of spots I missed, but this is just a quick brush with the sandpaper to get that unwanted little. Oh, there's a piece on the inside. Where else on this? Oh. Okay, that's good. All right, so now I'll take the strip out. See, we did get really a nice fit. 136 thousandths it turned out to be. Got a nice fit from adjusting the perforating tool to exactly what we wanted. And chew up this thing. And then the last piece of it we'll get with the chisel. And this is a great thing about having a shiny chisel, is that when you put it on there, you can see square reflected in the mirror of the chisel back. So that's kind of cool. And you could also see, if you're going to cut a miter, you could also see the miter. If you're going to cut a miter, you'd be able to see it like that. Okay. So it's a nice thing to have the back of your chisel shiny. And just set it right on this line. All right. I'm not sure I did that properly, but we'll check. Yeah, I need to adjust the angle a little bit, which is So it turns out that sometimes the light that you want for working and the light you want for filming and at precisely the same light. Okay, well, I like that. That seems fine. We're only mortal. So I'll put this piece of tape back here to aim at. And I'll get this guy out of here and glue it in. I like using high glue for this. I guess I never tried it, but I guess you could experiment with just flooding the whole thing with cyano, but I've never been a big fan of cyano flowing all over the place. I tend to use it sparingly. It's very, very useful, but I don't think I'll be doing that. The nice thing about doing that, of course, is that you can stick the whole thing in, say, okay, that's fine, and then tack it in by wicking it, which, you know, certainly wouldn't be the wrong way to do it. I just prefer to do it another way. So let me make sure I have everything together here. I'm going to need a clean Q-tip. So this will help distribute the glue. And we're going to place the glue with this handy little syringe, which is just about the right size for this job. Okay. Let's see, we're also going to need some compressed air. And maybe a paintbrush, an abbreviated brush. The plan is to glue this one strip in, get it where we want it, and then clean out the extra glue at the ends. Take a minute and then glue the other strip in. Okay? Here's our glue at about 160 Fahrenheit. I like these little jars for glue. You put them in the fridge overnight. Okay, so that's one side. Okay. Well, we're really happy with this. Came out great. Just the way we wanted it. What about that zippy red stripe, huh? Used to do them all black, but I don't know. Everything seems a little better when it's red. So it's so much easier to clean hide glue off with water than it is to sand it off afterwards. And so I try and get it all off. So you can see now the joints came out fine. There's a little scarf joint over here, angled joint, and then the butt joint at the end. So a nice sand, they'll look even better. Let me know if you have any questions. This is a tricky thing. It took me a while to figure out, but I can't tell you how pleased I am with the solutions that I've come up with and how it all comes out. It just looks like magic, and I think it's a better way to make a guitar than with binding. So we can have that argument online if you like. Ciao for now. Okay, so the last thing we need to do is just justify any little problems with the fit here. Of course, on this part of the guitar, there's a slope this way, and when the cutter comes down, it's square, in other words, parallel to the sides. So that means when we glue the purfling in, it's probably flush on this inside curve, and then a little proud on the outside of it. So what I've done is just done a little scraping here to even this out. And then also here, I was able to do some scraping, and you can see the scarf joint. Oh, it's not perfect, partly because the purfling is a little bit variable, and you can see the red line is closer to the edge on this side than it is on that side. So anyway, that's what it is. I mean, when all is said and done, we're not going to worry about it. The problem here, of course, is that the purfling is harder than the wooden material, particularly so on the top, but since this is the back, a little bit more forgiving. But what I like to do is to take this down and make sure we get everything flush with these little sanding blocks here. This is 220 sandpaper, and I don't really care which way I go with it. I mean, of course, it'd be nice to sand this way, but in effect, it's actually better to just follow the edge of the guitar this time. Just make sure that everything gets sanded everywhere, just a tiny bit. I'm not really taking off hardly any material because this came out so nicely. I just want to see some 220 scratch lines all around so that we know we've got an even surface. And then we'll sand the whole thing with 320 and then, I don't know, 800, I guess. Anyway, not too exciting, but this is what has to happen now. These don't last that long. They kind of clog up with this slightly gooey stripe material. A little low spot here I'm trying to tease out. But the amount of sanding we're doing really is very, very small. I'm not worried about changing the thickness with this thing. I probably could leave that, and the final sanding will remove the last two scratches there, and then anyway, it's nice to have a pad to hold the darn thing while you're sanding it. And it's good that it holds still, not rocking around on the bench. I'm not really sure how much of this y'all want to see, but this is how it works. A little bit of scraping and some sanding sure is looking good. That's about it. Take care.